Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network. Brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you on this frigid Wednesday, and it is a frigid Wednesday. I'm back from taking the kids to school. I was upstate taking Jack back to school, and it was like 7 below 0 this morning. The weather is just it's a little on the chilly side, to say the least. And I'm sure if we look at it, and I will take a peek at where the weather will be. The updated lines, Bet Rivers lines, they just gave me updated lines now. 6-2 are the lines. 6 obviously for the Eagles, 2 for the Chiefs in their epic battle with the Bills. Let me look at what the advance weather will be in Kansas City and in Philly on Sunday. The advanced weather for Sunday is not that bad. A low of 23, a high of 32. Cloudy, but a little windy, but not expected to be any precipitation. So if you got that, it's actually going to be 38 on Saturday. So they may even hit 30 degrees, which, considering that's okay. I mean, that's okay. The wind should be down in the 20s, but at least it's not going to be, Arctic. As far as Philly goes, let's see what they have to say there for Sunday. Let me take a peek. The advance for Sunday is 38 degrees. Game time temperature about 32. The high for the afternoon will be 38. So that game starts. That's the early game. You might be in the 30s. Doesn't look like any precipitation. Winds are a little hard to judge yet, but it looks like the temperatures will be okay. None of this like a high temperature of 8 or like it is today. Right now where I am, the temperature is 19. It was down to 9 this morning, and where I was this morning, like I told you, it was minus. I was in the first place I was in was -3 degrees. Then I was in a place that was -7 degrees. So that's a little cold for the game, but it doesn't look like it'd be that bad for both games coming up this weekend. There's a couple of. I know everyone here is waiting on edge for the Jets to make their announcement. I'm not going to dig into it until they officially name him because I'm not going to. It's not 100%. At least it wasn't 100% on this morning. New Orleans was still flirting. I think the Jets want him. They've made an offer to him. Maybe he's trying to negotiate the deal up based on the fact that he has another suitor in New Orleans. It's not until it's official. I'm not going to comment on it. We all know what's expected to happen. Let's wait till it happens, and then I'll do something on it when it does happen. Okay. Liam Cohn, who I've been very high on all year. I mentioned to you about a couple of weeks ago that I thought there was a very good chance. Well, because Liam Cohn had said it. That's not like I knew something that no one else knew. He said this. He said there was a very good chance he would stay with Tampa, that he wasn't ready to be a head coach yet. He has now pulled himself out of the Jacksonville situation where he was a finalist. He did not go back for another interview, and he signed a very, very lucrative deal that makes him one of the highest paid assistants in the NFL to stay in Tampa. So he'll stay in Tampa at least another year, maybe 2 years. He's not old. He's 39. He's got plenty of time, and he was smart enough to realize he wasn't ready to be a head coach yet. So that, I think, is good self-awareness on his part. I think he can wait to make his decision and move forward in a couple of years. He will be a head coach in this league, just not today. Now, that kind of situation leads us to Dallas. The story in Dallas is that whoever Jerry is talking to, he wants them to take one of his all-time favorites and one of my all-time favorites, Jason Witten, onto the staff. Now, Jason Witten, as you know, if you're a Cowboy fan, played 16 years for the Cowboys. He's a legendary Cowboy tight end. Drafted on the third round, first player picked in the third round by Bill Parcells, 69th pick in the draft. I know that because he was one of my guys. Through the years, there were a couple of guys. Now, Bill and I used to watch some games together. I loved him at Tennessee, where he won number one. He wore 82 at the Cowboys. I was very high on him, and he was one of my guys. I was always pitching him to Bill before the draft when he was in college. Now, I have to admit too, just to show you that I'm not just taking credit for the ones that I got right. I also was a big proponent of Jared Bunch, if you remember, with the Giants, and I pushed him a lot too. I talked him up all year, just like I talked Witten up all year. And Bunch didn't turn out to be the player that we hoped he would be. So that you get some right, you get some wrong. So, but Witten's been a legendary Cowboy. He's been a high school coach. Now, Witten is a guy who is a team leader. He's great for the culture, the whole deal. But Jerry now has had thoughts that maybe what I really need to do is build a staff around Witten, bring in a couple of a couple of veteran coordinators, and let Witten be the head coach. Now, Witten played 16 years with the Cowboys. He obviously knows his way around the team. He knows his way around the city. He knows his way around football. But he has never coached above the high school level. So to make a move from the high school level to coach the Dallas Cowboys is really pushing it. There's no bigger Witten fan than me. As a person, as a player, the whole deal. There's nothing not to like. If you're going to make a football player and you made one out of the Witten mold, you would be doing a great thing. There's nothing not to like as a player, as a competitor, the whole deal. But I'm of the opinion that the Dallas Cowboys should never hire a coach who doesn't have head coaching experience. That's how hard that job is. There are certain jobs in football that you need to be experienced to take the job because there's just too much pressure and too much to do in the role of the job that if it's your first job, or you're stepping up from a coordinator to that job, that is an incredible transition. And I think an overwhelming one. But it isn't fair to anybody that you say take Kellen Moore, who has been mentioned all the time and has been thought of as a Cowboy head coach ever since he was in Dallas. Now he's the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, as you know. Kellen was a good coach. But if you're pushing Witten on Kellen Moore, that's not fair. It's the wrong way to go about this. Hey, you know what? Here, you got to take Witten on the staff. Well, what if he doesn't want to take Witten on the staff? Now, I'm not saying he'd have a problem taking Witten on the staff, but why does the job come with those conditions? This is Jerry screwing things up like always. So I don't know what's going on there. And here's the thing. Dallas might be left without a wonderful candidate, and Mike McCarthy might be left without a job. Although I still think there's a very good chance he winds up being the head coach of New Orleans. I don't know what's happened there. Now, I don't know what his contract demands are. I'm sure Mike McCarthy's not going to come cheap. And maybe he's even to the point where he thinks, you know what, it won't kill me to take a year off. Might. But I think he'd jump back in if he gets the chance right now. So we know we have Ben Johnson in the Bears where he's being treated like, the second coming, which, folks, you just don't know. Okay? We've been down this road before. When someone asks you or asks me, is this guy going to be a good head coach? I say the same thing all the time. None of us know if a coordinator, despite whether his team won Super Bowls, despite whether he led the league in the statistics that come from his unit, whatever it might be, you have no idea if he is going to make the transition successfully to head coach. I've made this point many times. There was no coordinator in the history of the NFL who had a better resume making the move to head coach than Bill Arnsparger. Bill Arnsparger was Don Shula's right-hand man. Shula was an offensive coach, and the head coach, Bill Arnsparger, ran the defense, built the famed no-name defense. Bill Arnsparger, for years, all he heard was, wow, who's going to be lucky enough? Is he going to wait and try to succeed Shula, which they knew was never going to happen because Shula was never going to leave? Where's he going to go? Oh, anybody would love. And you heard for years and years, oh, it's automatic. He's going to be a head coach. So the Giants, of course, hire him, and he goes 7-24 as a head coach because he couldn't get a player to do anything. He had no personality. He could not motivate players. Now, when he was running his defense, he was fine. When he had to run the whole team, he was a disaster. North Turner, one of the great offensive coordinators of all time, and one of the great play callers, was not a good head coach. Why? Because he's a sweetheart. And it's hard to be a very successful head coach if you're a sweetheart. To be a good head coach, you got to be a little bit of a jerk at times. You can't worry if people like you. You got to be tough. And that wasn't Norv. So there's two examples. I could give you 22 of enormously successful coordinators who are not head coaches. And I'm going to give you another one right now, and I don't mean to disparage him. And it sounds like he's a candidate to get the job in Jacksonville, and that's Saleh. Saleh was a terrific defensive coordinator. If he went back to San Francisco as a defensive coordinator, I'm sure he'll shine again. And eventually somebody's going to give him another chance. Why? Because he looks the part on the sideline. He runs a good defense. He's personable, the whole deal, except one thing. He's a terrible head coach. He has no idea how to run the whole team, and his sideline awareness and sideline abilities are awful. They're not bad, they're terrible. The only thing is, coverage is worse. When they put Ulbrich in, he was worse than Saleh. So they're thinking, well, Saleh didn't look so bad. What do you mean Saleh looks so bad? Did you watch him coach for 3 years here? First of all, he won 30% of his games. Secondly, he was dreadful. And I'm not trying to keep him from getting a job. If he gets a job, more power to him. But you know what? If I'm in Jacksonville, you're going to tell me that's who you're going to hire? Then you don't know. Then you did no homework, or you never watched him coach a game. Because how could you do that and hire him to be your head coach? He was not a good head coach. He was a bad head coach. Not a bad guy. Good, nice guy, as everyone says. Good defensive coordinator. Terrible head coach. It happens. So, do I know if Ben Johnson's going to be a good head coach? I don't. Does he have the makings? Yes. Is he going to do a good job with the quarterback? I don't think there's any question. They're going to spike the offense up. It's going to be imaginative. He's going to do a good job. Is he going to do a good job with the rest of the team? I have no idea. We're going to find out. Can he lead men? Can he make decisions? See, when you're a coordinator, you got your group, you're in a room, you got a game plan, you got stuff to do, but you don't have to handle the things that a head coach has to handle. A head coach has to handle everything. He has to handle the whole squad. He has to handle every problem that comes up with one of his players. He has to deal with the media. He has to deal with the owner. Okay. He has to deal with 92 things that he never had to deal with as defensive coordinator, ever. Then he also has to have an awareness of the other side of the ball and special teams. And then he has to be a decision maker on Sunday. Some guys just have no idea. As a matter of fact, you watch that. The guys who are good at it are in the minority. They're rare. They're rare. You see more mistakes than you see good. For every Sean Payton, there's 5 guys who don't have a clue. That's just the way it is. So, do I know if Aaron Glenn's going to be a good head coach? I do not. There's no way to know. That doesn't make him a bad candidate. Head coaches have to start somewhere. Some are going to be good, some are not. Some are also going to be, in situations where they don't have a chance to be successful. Now, what's going on with Glenn is he wants to work with the guy. So the GM is almost riding shotgun here. And this is typical Jet. This makes no sense. Why are you bringing in a GM who basically is the number 2 man? At worst, you want them to be 1 in 1A and they have parallel responsibilities. Here, Glenn is clearly in charge of the whole shop now. What has he done that he deserves to be in charge of the whole shop? Because the only reason the guy's getting the job as GM is because he's not a good candidate. He's getting it because Aaron Glenn wants to work with him. But let me wait till this happens before I don't want to do a whole thing and then not have it happen. So let's wait until it's happened. But it looks like the Jets are about to screw it up again. What else is there? The other jobs that are open, we'll see. We'll see. Sal is supposedly one of 3 candidates in Jacksonville. I would have no idea how you would go to a press conference and introduce him as your head coach. I just don't have any idea. I mean, to me, you're a laughing stock if you do that. Just shows you that you have no idea as a franchise. That's the best you can come up with, is a guy who just got fired and won 30% of his games with the Jets? I mean, are you kidding, right? That's the best you could come up with. You left Pete Carroll out there. You left 9,000 different candidates out there, and you hired a guy who won 30% of his games. He just got fired? I mean, are you serious? I mean, so listen, he didn't get the job yet either, but he's a finalist, which is beyond comprehension. And this is not to run him down, just telling you that I watched him coach every game. And he's not a good coach. And where the other teams are, we'll see. And where the Cowboys are, this Witten thing has gummed up the works there, from what I understand. I don't see any way McCarthy goes back to. I've heard that today. Oh, McCarthy's going to go back to Dallas. I don't think Jerry Jones would ever admit his plan didn't work and he really messed up by letting him go and now drag him back in. I don't think Jerry would ever admit that he was that far off things. His ego won't allow him to do that. I think McCarthy might do it, but I don't think Jerry would go near that. I mean, even if he tried this, I don't. Even if he thought he could sell you that, gee, I just told him to go out and look around, but really he was always coming back, which is nonsense. No one would buy that, and Jerry is not going to risk that because his ego won't allow him to go that route. I just can't see that. I just really can't. But Are they going to hire Witten, who I love, but who is a high school coach? How do you make the jump from the high school coach to the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys turn around. Now, his name, I understand he's a legendary Cowboy figure, but that is as a player. So things get stranger all the time. Let me get a couple of emails in, then I'll finish up with the Hall of Fame. Okay. First, let me tell you about Squares. Players can play same game parlays on what NFL games are left, just a couple. Turn Squares, the exclusive Squares game, offers additional chances for profit boosts, bonus bets, and big jackpots. So go to the BetRivers app for more details. You got a couple of games left, actually 3. That's it. After now, the college football season is in the bank, and now we have 2 games this weekend, and then a game that will be in New Orleans on the 9th of February. All right, let's see what's on you guys' mind today. You can reach me at Mike Francesa Podcast at gmail.com. Wilson starts us off with, I wonder if that's the Wilson who used to call me all the time. There was a Wilson who used to call me on the show. How much do the Giants regret winning a few games last year and missing out on Daniels? A lot. A lot. Very much. It is not a secret that he was Dable's favorite last year. Not a secret. And yes, now I am not a believer trying to tank games. I'm just not. I think it is I think it's bad karma. I think it's bad for the organization. I think it sends the wrong message. I I understand, whoa, you know what, but hey, I remember the Packers, won a game and lost Troy Aikman. You can go down the line a million times. Okay. Hey, it is what it is, but you can't ask those players to not try. I just think there's something wrong with that. You can't. Now you can sit them out and try to win with the backups. I don't have a problem with that if you want to do that the last 2 weeks of the season. But you know what? It's hard to sell that to anybody. These games, they count in the standings. They count for the coaches on their career record. Everything counts. It's a video resume for the players, and you're charging money for the games. Tommy, is Andy Reid in the Bill Belichick level of coaches in NFL history? Yes, most definitely. Mac, have the Mets blown it with Alonso? Why is he penny pinching with the homegrown slugger? He's not penny pinching. This has nothing to do with money, folks. What this has to do with is the general manager's vision for this team does not include an aging, lumbering, one-dimensional slugger at first base. That's what this is about. He wants athletic, versatile players. He does not want, it's very obvious, he does not want, this is not about money. This guy, listen, he wants something, he buys it. It's not about money. This is about them waiting and hoping somebody, I think this is what Stearns was doing, waiting and stalling and keep hoping that they play enough contractual footsie with Alonso till somebody else signs him, because Stearns doesn't want him. It's obvious. He would have been here already. He doesn't want that profile player. He doesn't want an aging. He thinks he's going to age badly. And he doesn't want a one-dimensional slugging first baseman. He wants versatile, athletic players. That's what he believes in. Okay? You can see already what this guy believes in. He believes in bringing in a bunch of arms in the bullpen. He believes in bringing in a bunch of guys that he thinks they can fix. Guys who have ability, guys who they profile that they think have ability that they have not shown at pitcher, and that they can develop them in their pitching lab. Okay? That's how they go about the pitchers. And on the team side, now clearly Soto, we know, is different. He's a gem. So he's a no-brainer. It's a superstar. Other than that, though, they want to have versatile, athletic, and young players. That's what Stearns wants to build. That's the team he built in Milwaukee. That's the team he wants to build here. You can see it a mile away, and Alonso doesn't fit his deal. If the owner had an overwhelming love, or if the owner's wife had an overwhelming love for Alonso, he would be here. They have let the general manager make the call. The call clearly is, I don't want him. Now, does that mean he eventually doesn't come back for 1 year? Well, if he doesn't have his vision, now I don't know if his vision is Vientos at third base, at first base, and somebody else at third base. If that's the case, then Alonso's not coming back at all. Or if there's somebody else he wants, or some deal he wants, and I don't think he wanted Santander, because he looks at Santander as the same thing. He looks at him as a switch hitting, slugging outfielder who's very limited in what he does other than hit home runs, but he hits a lot of home runs. If he wanted him, he would have signed him. If they want somebody, they will sign him. This is not economic. This is a vision for the team. This is the general manager's vision. I don't know if his vision is Vientos at first base or Vientos at third base and another player, but a more versatile, athletic, younger player at first base. That's what I don't know. But he obviously does not want Pete here. Hey, Pete has earned the right to be here. Pete has done a great job as a Met. Is he one-dimensional? Yes, but he is very good as one-dimensional. If you look over the last 5 years, he's one of the leaders in home runs and RBIs in the major leagues. Plus, he plays every single game, and he doesn't hurt you defensively. He's not Keith Hernandez, but he doesn't hurt you defensively. And he plays all the time. Is he the best clutch hitter in the world? Well, he's hot and cold because he has some holes, and you can get him out. But he also can hit big home runs, as we've seen. And he hits plenty of home runs. And he loves this town. He embraces it. He can handle the pressure. And I hope Stearns understands how important that is here, because there's a lot of players who can't. And that dimension to Pete's game is highly underrated. He loves it here. He loves the whole atmosphere. He loves the pressure. He performs in it. He has performed in it. So I think they're making a mistake with him, but I don't think they want him. It's obvious they don't want him. They would have had him already. Just waiting for somebody else to take him. And you know what? Corner players who are limited other than power do not get a lot of looks. They are not in great demand. Everybody in baseball wants the same thing. They want versatile, athletic, younger players. That's what everybody wants. John, did you watch the inauguration? What did you think? I watched until 11, and then Jack and I left for Hamilton. So I drove Jack back to school. So, no, excuse me. Monday was Harrison. I drove Harrison Monday to Fairfield. So that was Monday. We left at about 11:15. I listened to the whole thing in the car. That's when I was up at school, and the wind blew the trunk into my head, as we know here, with my Band-Aid, which I'm leaving on because it's an ugly cut. And they told me that they can't stitch the cut until it closes, because it was so wide open that they couldn't stitch it. So they're going to stitch it, or see if they have to stitch it when it heals. So that's why. I haven't washed my hair since I did it, which is very hard for me, because I never go. I usually take 2 showers a day, and I'm not used to not having my hair clean, so it's kind of weird. But I haven't been able to go in the water yet. They won't let me, so I haven't been able to go in yet and take a shower. So I hope to take it tonight. So that's the problem with that. But so I didn't see it. Now I heard both speeches. I heard the A speech, and then I heard the one he really wanted to give. I heard the inaugural speech, where he really killed. If Biden, here's what I was thinking in the car: if Biden had a poison dart gun, he would have shot a dart right into Trump's neck. Because Trump was killing him, and he's sitting 4 feet away, and he's killing him. And then he goes downstairs to meet the other supporters who couldn't see it. So he went down and did 40 minutes for them, which was really nice. And he gave you the real material. I won the election in 20, they cheated and everything else, and gave you the real stuff he wanted to give you that they talked him out of, which he said at the time. So I heard both that. I heard the inaugural speech and then the speech he really wanted to give downstairs. Now, as far as anything other than that, I missed Carrie Underwood's performance, which got a lot of attention. I didn't see it. Melania is stunning. She has, great clothes. She's a beautiful woman. I did not like her hat. And I usually like hats on women, especially someone as stylish as she is. I did not like her hat at all. Did not like her hat. That's it. That was very odd. I just didn't like her hat. I have to admit. I saw her walk in before I left, and I did not like her hat. But other than that, what did I expect it? Yeah, it's exactly what I expected. It was exactly the tone I expected. If someone was looking for a unifying thing, they weren't going to get it. What you were going to get was the last 4 years have been a disaster, and now we're going to have the greatest 4 years in the history of mankind. Well, you knew that's what he's going to say. That's what he always says. So, I mean, you knew that going in. So, was I surprised by anything? No. Was I surprised by all the executive orders? Not really. He's been talking about it forever. Did anything really surprise me? Not really. I was surprised he released everybody from January 6th because there were some people there that did some nasty stuff. So I was surprised he released everybody. I thought he could cherry pick, and they said they were going to cherry pick, and then they didn't. They just wholesalely released everybody. So that might come back to bite them a little bit because they released some guys who probably shouldn't have got released. But the other stuff I've kind of expected. And every day there's something new with Elon Musk. I mean, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that. He's, so there's people are so hung up on him, it's unbelievable. Hey, if you thought we were going to have some new unity or a different feel, Democrats and Republicans are going to be at each other's throat just as badly as they've been for the last since Bush Gore. That started the whole thing. And it's just gotten worse with Trump. Bush Gore started it. And then you had all the stuff with, was Obama a citizen and all that. And then the Democrats got mad. Then the Democrats and then Trump got mad. And they go back. It's not going to get better. It's going to be just as contentious. And polar opposites and no cooperation and not in the long run. Unless it's done by executive order, nothing's going to get done in Congress. Nothing. So I think it's a shame. It's not good for the country, but you wish they would get along. But I don't think there's any hope of that. Are the Knicks better or worse than last year? They are. Let me put it this way. Randall didn't fit in with the group. When they got Bridges, I told you that day that Randall couldn't play with this group. Before, I'm telling you, when I said it at the time between you and me, the Knicks thought he could. I even talked to a couple of guys, to be honest with you, and they argued with me that he could. And I said, I don't believe it for a second that he can. And I think they knew in their heart of hearts he couldn't. It would not have worked. They did not want to give up Dante, who's hurt now, as you know. The Knicks, if they could have kept Isaiah, they'd be okay. With Robinson out and no Isaiah, They don't have they're not the same team because they can't rim protect and they have no bench. They've been playing with zero bench all year. You're not going to beat Oklahoma City. You're not going to beat Cleveland. You're not going to beat Boston if you don't have a bench. And they don't have a bench and they don't have any rim protection. And they are not what they were last year. They were a terror on the offensive glass, and they had great rim protection, and now they don't have that anymore. And I don't know when Robinson's coming back or if he's coming back, and they have to develop a bench. They have no bench. If they can't add a couple of people here to be contributors, it will be a problem. They have some weaknesses here. Now, on the offensive end, when you put Towns in and Bridges in and have four guys who can get 40, which they have and already have, and it takes scoring pressure off Brunson, they have the ability to be so much better offensively than they've been because of Towns' prowess. Hey, Towns is a good offensive player. He's not a good defensive player. So you're losing on one end, and Tibbs knew what he was getting into, but this is not something that he loves because it's just not his perfect team. Last year's team was close, but they wore those guys out because they didn't have the ability to take them off the court. And losing Dante hurt. And I know Dante's heartbroken, but they couldn't have made the deal. They couldn't have got rid of Randall. They couldn't have gotten Towns. And if they had not given up Dante, they would not. They would not make the deal without it. They tried 100 times. It didn't work. And now Dante gets hurt anyway. They can be fixed without heavy lifting, but they have to be fixed before the playoffs, or they are not going to have a big run. That's my opinion. So right now, they are no better. From a playoff standpoint, they are no better than they were last year. They are better on a given night because they can be so much better offensively, but they are not better in the long run to win in the playoffs right now the way they're built, unfortunately. But they are much more readily fixable than you think. It's not that they need a healthy big man who can protect the rim. I thought they might get him in a trade. I still think they might. And they need a bench player. You know what player I'd love to bring here? Now, I don't know if these are available. I would love to bring Whitmore here from Houston. The kid who used to play at Villanova. You take that guy off the bench. That guy is instant offense off the bench. Plus, he can give you 20 minutes to score 20 points. He'd be perfect. Perfect. He's an athlete, the whole thing. I don't know if you can get him. They seem to like him, then don't like him. He plays 2 minutes, then he plays 22 minutes and scores 28 points, and then he's playing in the D League. So, I mean, I don't know what they're doing with him, but that's a guy I'd have my eye on. Plus, they need a big man. They absolutely. And it's not their fault. I mean, you knew he was going to go to Oklahoma City. He got a fortune. But to answer your question in a long-winded answer, they are no better off from a playoff standpoint, no better off than they were last year. But they're more readily fixable. They are fixable. And if they do it, I will tell you as they do it. But the two things they have to do is they obviously have to get a rim protector and they have to get some bench. They cannot survive the way they're playing now. Audie, whether it's Glenn or someone else taking over with no quarterback at the moment, the expectations have to be low again for 2025. Well, there's no question there. You made a statement, but I would, as I've told you, if they had brought in a veteran coach. Now, if they bring in the right offensive coordinator and Aaron Glenn knows his way around the town, the city, the team. If he can be a leader, and I'd say it's 50-50 whether he can or not. I like Aaron. I always liked him. You know, I know him pretty well. I've always liked him. if they get the right offensive coordinator, and my early things I heard, I wasn't high on what they were doing. If they could get the right offensive coordinator, and they will keep Rodgers and his buddy at wide receiver, and I mean keep both of them. Okay, you have to keep him. If you don't keep him, it doesn't work. So if they go out and draft a quarterback or bring in a journeyman, they're going to have a terrible season because that means that 3 or 4 of these guys are gone. See, Rodgers, as you've heard me say a million times, his year was not that bad. Do I blame him for some things? Yes. But the lack of coaching, the lack of leadership, the lack of continuity, the lack of game planning, the lack of communications on the sideline, the lack of judgment on the sideline, everything. Now, he got injured in the Denver game. It's no secret. It took him some weeks, but once he got his legs under him again, you saw some stuff from him and his connections and what he did. And you saw what they could do. And if Glenn brings that back with a good offensive coordinator, I'm telling you, they won 5 games this year. The 7 games that they played, they could have easily won without even any big deal. So give them 5 of those, they have 10 wins. Give them 6 of them, they have 11 wins. That team could be the Chargers went from 5-12 to 11-7. I think the Jets could do the same thing. With the right leadership, they could do the same thing. Their roster is not bad. It needs to be tweaked the right way. They need a tight end. Okay. I'm not happy with the slot receiver, but I can live with it. They need a tight end. They need to continue with their depth on the offensive line. They desperately need run stoppers. And they can't lose certain people on defense. But if they do all that and none of it's crazy, they could be an 11-win team next year. Now, they might not see that vision, but that vision's there. But that's with a good offensive mind running the offense. I'm figuring it's Aaron Glenn running the defense. Okay, running the team and running the defense, even though he's not going to be defensive coordinator, that's where his strength is. He's going to leave the offense to somebody. See, just like Andy does. Andy's an offensive coach, and he's a genius play caller, and he's a genius game planner, and he lets Spags run the defense. Andy doesn't do it. Andy gives Spags the defense. That's his job. That there's been many guys. Mike Holmgren had Fritz Shermer. Andy had Jimmy Johnson in Philadelphia, and then he had Sean. Okay, go down the line. There's been many of those. Ditka had Buddy Ryan, and the championship combinations. I told you who I would like to be the defensive coordinator. Rex Ryan, but he would never take it. His ego wouldn't allow him, but that's where he belongs. Pay him a lot. Let him have a press conference every week so he can have his jollies. Let him be defensive coordinator, and he'll build you a defense because his ego wouldn't allow him to not do it, and he'd do it really well. That's what his father did, and his father got famous doing that in Chicago. His glory days were as an assistant in Chicago. They were not as a head coach. Buddy Ryan. Buddy Ryan became a legend as an assistant in Chicago, not as a head coach. Wasn't a bad head coach, but he never won a playoff game. They had a habit of beating the Giants in the regular season, though. They did do that. All right. Baseball. Hall of Fame. Problem with Etro? No, obviously. I mean, the voting is silly. It's different now. How does some guys not get in on the first ballot? How does some guys get, how does Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays not get 99.9% of the votes? Does anybody out there think they weren't a Hall of Famer? So now you have these situations where everybody votes for him. In those days, it seems like people left guys off just to make a point, or I don't know what the point was. But you see their numbers are not that high. And then in the last 20 or 30 years, it's changed where Siva got really high and Mariana got perfect and, Ichiro got within one. But you go back and these guys who were immortals, Mantle, Mays, Ted, well, Ted Williams hated the writers. That's a different story. But go down the line, DiMaggio, Mays, Mantle, Muse, these guys are all-time greats, and they didn't get 99.9. Why not? I don't understand why not, but it doesn't really matter. Carlos Beltran's a Hall of Famer, he didn't get in. Andrew Jones is a Hall of Famer, he didn't get in. I'm not going to disparage anybody who got in because I don't really want to make it. I'm not looking to hurt anybody. And let me say this. Here's what's going to happen with the steroid thing, which baseball never handled it well. Bud never handled it well. They were completely duplicitous in the steroid use in the days of McGuire and Sosa. Both sides came within an eyelash of destroying baseball, and then they didn't care what McGuire did as long as he hit home runs and brought the people back to the game. They didn't care if he had Android in his locker. They didn't care if he had it in his Wheaties. Okay. And then what happened is Congress and Waxman get up one day and yell at Bud Selig and embarrass him, and all of a sudden now Bud's going to become the toughest guy in the world on steroids. It is one of the jokes of all time. And my big argument the whole time was, why was A-Rod the only culprit? Not that A-Rod wasn't a culprit. What A-Rod did was wrong. But the point is, why didn't they go after other people with the absolute fury that they went after him? Why? Because they needed someone to make an example of, and they chose him to be the guy. Now, they have a whole bunch of great all-time greats who are tainted by steroids. They also all know this little dirty secret that there's guys in the Hall of Fame who did steroids. All right, we all know it. Now, what's going to happen in my mind is these players, Clemens, Bonds, A-Rod, Manny, go down the list, are all going to get old. But sometime along the way, someone's going to write a book or give an interview when they're in their last days and say, you know what? I got to fess up. I'm in the Hall of Fame for 25, 30 years, but I did steroids. The day that happens, the Veterans Committee is going to have a bonanza. They're going to start putting A-Rod and Clemens and Bonds and Manny in as fast. They might have put them all in 1 year, have a party. Okay? They're all going in through the Veterans, the Veterans Senior Committee, just like Richie Allen went in this year. Now, anybody who questions if Richie Allen's a Hall of Famer never saw him play. Okay? Richie Allen was a guy whose career, if you go by his talent, was a disappointment. And I loved Richie Allen. I used to go to the ballpark just to watch Richie Allen play. He was one of my favorite players. I loved him. Richie Allen had as much talent. He had more talent than Reggie Jackson. Problem was he didn't take the game seriously. Reggie did. He didn't. He was more interested in racehorses and some other activities. He had a terrific career. When he was on his game, he was brilliant. He wasn't always on his game. When he was like the White Sox, he was the best player in the league. Won the MVP, had a great year, had some great years with the Phillies, and had some years where he just didn't care very much. It was just him. He was kind of like a free spirit. He liked to live. Okay? But if anybody questions if he's a Hall of Famer, he had more talent in his pinky than most guys do in their whole body. Dave Parker, getting in, I don't have a problem with him. Dave Parker was a really good player. He wasn't as good as Richie Allen, but he was a really good player. But that's what's going to happen. Once somebody breaks the barrier and admits, hey, you know what? I got to fess up. You know, I'm 82 or 85 or whatever. I got to fess up. I did steroids. Once one guy does it, they're all getting it, and then it's over. If they want to put on their plaque a little asterisk that they did steroids, well, go ahead. But they're all getting in. And you know what else? Now that he's gone and he can't come back and be a pain in the rear end to anybody because of his popularity, the reason Pete Rose was never put in the Hall of Fame was one, because he stupidly kept lying that he didn't bet on baseball, and that irked baseball and especially irked the people who love Bart Giamatti because they felt like Rose was somehow responsible for his demise. Okay, that he upset him so much that he got is one of the reasons why he died. That's not fair, but that's what people think. So Rose is gone now, though. What they always feared was if they let Rose be activated, that he would find his way back into a baseball uniform because they loved him. And he's a magnet, and people would go to the games. If he managed the team, if a team had an empty stadium, they could make Pete Rose manager. We'll pack the ballpark. So that's what they feared. Now he's gone. You don't have to fear that anymore. So with that being the case, you watch. Before too long, you know what? For his legacy, Pete's in the Hall of Fame. The senior committee will put Pete in the Hall of Fame. And all those steroid guys, too. When? I might not see it. A-Rod might not see it. A-Rod's kids will see it. And that'll include Manny and Bonds and Roger and everybody else. Now, I'm a hard grader. Okay? There's nobody who loved Andy Pettitte more than me. I loved Andy Pettitte. And I was never more confident than when Andy was on the mound. He's one of the great postseason competitors of all time. Do I think he's a Hall of Famer as a pitcher? I don't. But I'm a hard marker. You know, I think to be a Hall of Famer as a pitcher, you got to have at some point dominated as a starting pitcher. Dominated. You know, be Sandy Koufax. Not really be Sandy Koufax, but you know the point. The bottom line is you don't want to water this down to a certain point. And hey, Andy's postseason career makes him very close, but very close is very close. Okay, now some guys. Now, interestingly, I hear a lot of people say things about certain guys, and some of them I would make an argument were. What I always looked for was I want to say that the guy. Here's the thing: you have to have put in a body of work over a period of time. That is what establishes you as being special. Performance at an extremely high level over a period of time, not 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Koufax is the exception because he was so good. He's the best pitcher who ever lived, but only for 5 years. But yes, but they were amazing. That's why he's in. There are special players like that. Like Kurt Warner's like that in football. He deserves to be in. He didn't play very long, but his career was amazing when he was in there. Terrell Davis is another one. The guys who didn't hit that height at any point, I know I've always, everyone always uses the word that I always use, compiler. But that's what they are. But the Hall of Fame likes certain compilers, certain magic numbers. If you hit 280 and you get 3,000 hits over, 25 years, are you a Hall of Famer? Well, in their eyes, you are. But to me, yeah, you were solid, but were you ever special? I think at some point you have to be special, and you have to carry your career over a certain amount of years to be really good and to get there. So I'm a hard marker, though. I admit that. And I know it means so much to the players that I never get hung up on it when they get in. Like, I don't get mad when they get in because I know how much it means. No matter who you are, I've seen people get angrier about this than anything that they ever did in their career. Players, coaches, vehemently angry about the Hall of Fame stuff. It means a lot because they've been out a while and it's their last bit of recognition, not a bit, last amount of recognition, and it's permanent. It's a legacy. It's there forever. And it means a lot. I'm telling you, if you're in your profession and you get in the Hall of Fame, it means a lot. It really does. To say it doesn't is a lie. It's just a lie. Anyone who's in it knows it. And the other part is, as Joe Torre always told the players when they were young and good, like a Cano, he used to say, "Hey, Ronnie, if you make the Hall of Fame, it's a license to print money for the rest of your life." For players, there's an economic advantage. You can do card shows, you can do appearances, you can do everything for the rest of your life if you're a Hall of Famer. So there's an economic thing for the player. That's a secondary effect, but it's real. We'll see you later.